this. But Jake Fair here is the brother of Paul Fair. Paul Fair was the founder of Operation 612. And if I may be, I think it started out of a personal addiction problem that he had. And as he moved, I think he was in prison one time when he thought, you know what, there's a better life than this, right, Jake?
Yeah, he started it, well, when he got busted.
Yeah.
He ended up in prison. He got a 3-year sentence and then ended up being in for a year.
Yeah.
So that's how it all started. And then when he got out, God laid it on his heart to start a ministry called Operation 612. I don't know if you can bring that up. Ephesians 6:12 is what it stands for. For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of the age, against spiritual hosts of wickedness in the heavenly places. You know, when God works with people and you come up with that, that's what we're dealing with right now is darkness. And we try to bring it, when you bring it to light, darkness has to flee. So that's where that really stands out for me. It's really good. But so that's where it all started, was Ephesians 6:12, from Paul coming out of prison, promising God that he would live for him the rest of his life, and that's what he's doing. He's doing, trying to help other people, which is doing a great job. So a day at 612 starts by half of them going to work at what time? Yeah, so around 5 o'clock. The rest of them get to sleep in until 6:45. Yeah, then they get up and they got to eat breakfast, do their chores, and then they do Proverbs, a study of Proverbs is first, and then they do their chores, and then around 9 o'clock we have somebody come in and do a Bible study. Somebody local, businessmen, whoever wants to do a Bible study, comes in and does a Bible study with them, and then usually that goes until around lunchtime. And then after that, you get Dan usually has some work around the house that needs to be done. And then in the afternoon, they get to relax a little bit, work on themselves. You know, a lot of times we get too busy and we don't want to work on ourselves because we're trying to avoid the problems that we have. So this gives them the opportunity to work on themselves. And, you know, I think I'm guilty of that too, that we want to be busy, so we don't have time to work on ourselves, so we don't have to face the issues at hand. And a lot of times they'll turn to drugs instead of doing that. So when they get in the program, that's what we're trying to do, is we're trying to bring God in the picture and show them that with God, that void is filled and we don't need to do drugs in order to be happy, to sustain life the way we should. So, and then normally in the evenings, they'll have Bible study, or they'll have Thursday nights, they have prayer night, which is really good. People, they all look forward for that. And that's the gist of it. And the way it works is they do, half of them go to work 1 week, and then they switch. And then the other half stays at home, and then that's how it works. And they don't always have the day off, but when I say the day off, they still have to work on themselves, but there's other stuff that needs to be done. And we've been blessed with a property in Fresno that a local businessman donated the property. It's 13 acres with 13 buildings on it. It's an old watershed facility. So there's, I think, 5 houses on it that we want to remodel. So the guys spend some time down there to start cleaning up and remodeling and stuff like that. So that's where most of your money is being spent at, is down there in Fresno right now. And to give these guys a chance to, half of them go to work, the other half stays at home so that they can work on themselves. Basically, with the money that you guys donate, gives us that opportunity to do that. Without that, we would have to send everybody to work, and they basically would not have a chance to work on themselves. So that's where a lot of your money is being used at, and we greatly appreciate that. With that said, we have Brian, which we call Teddy, and you'll understand why when you see him. And then we have James, and then we have Mike, and the cook. They're going to be sharing their testimonies today and what God has done in their life. And I think we can all look at that and get something out of it. I think you guys will be amazed.
My name is Brian Hellmuth. I am from Napanee, Indiana. I am 36 years old. I grew up in an Amish home by loving parents. They had a good family. I grew up in a house that was, they all loved sports. We played softball a lot, and I've done that until 2004 or 15, I think it was. And there's nothing wrong with that. But the problem is that I double-lifed that. When I turned 16, I used to dream of, playing softball with the guys, and I figured out that was kind of a trap for me, because that's where my focus was, and I forgot what my parents had taught me, to take God with me. And so there was a devil waiting on me, and he, the way he did this was easily a way to get a guy who's, I did not grow up thinking I was going to do drugs. I was really against drugs, but how it came to me is I was working with a bunch of friends, and we hung out, and I knew they did drugs, but I would just shy away from them. I drank alcohol, but that was it. And then one day they were like, well, why don't we go to the mall? And I was like, okay, go shopping. And they were like, but before we go, you're going to have to smoke with us, smoke weed with us. I was like, oh, no, I would never do that. I can't do that. Mom and Dad, they would not appreciate me doing that. They're like, yeah, just this one time, it's nothing. And this is where the trap came in. I partook in this. And it's not the drugs. It was the devil saying it's okay to take part of something that you stood for. That rock started to crumble. And it kept on crumbling until it turned into other drugs, harder drugs. And there's times that I would quit and think that, I'll quit soon. I'm not going to be that guy that I bought from that's in his 30s or 40s still doing drugs. And I have a couple workers here that work with me, and we used to joke about, we do drugs to go to rehab. Well, God knew it then, because here we are. We're both here. And it's sad to say I'm 36. He's 22 years old. But I was still in it at the age of 36. My family never gave up on me. They were about at their wits' end. They remember Mom and Dad always praying for me every night. And they used to pray with my name in their prayers. That's powerful. That's what brought me here. I am very thankful that my parents prayed for me. The power of prayer is something we can use against, like it says in the verse, against spiritual hosts of wickedness. We can fight against the darkness that entwines us into thinking that wrong decisions are okay, and they're not. It's bad choices just keep adding up, and you think you can quit, but you can't quit on your own. It's a lot harder than you think. And sometimes I wish I could go back, but other times I think this is the way it was meant to be. It was for me to get over it. It was through prayer and through 612. If I would have had, I was kind of forced to come out here. It was either be homeless or come out here, and I was mad. I didn't take that too well. It's my family that pushed me out here, so they kind of forced me out here. They wouldn't help me with any of the things that I had, like as far as my personal stuff. They wouldn't take it. They told me that they're not going to do this unless I go get help. And the only way to get me to do this was that way, because if I would have had a choice, I'd still be that guy out there doing drugs. I know it. I was so comfortable doing drugs that I would not even be scared to go home high. I would go home, I'd have it in my car, and I had no conscience of who I was hurting. I told myself I did not hurt anybody. The only person I'm hurting is myself. That's how bad Satan had me thinking that drugs are good. Drugs will take you to places and hurt people that you never wanted to hurt. And I was really good at that. And that's what's very dangerous, I think, is because once we get comfortable living with our sins, we can walk in anywhere. We can walk into church and look good, but the truth is we're not looking good to God. Now, I've learned here at 612 that to give these things up and to talk about them, to get them out is a very good way. It feels like a lot of the weight has been lifted off of my shoulders since I've been here. They have given me a great band of brothers that I have to help me pray for the things that I do. We pray for each other. We care a lot about each other. It's like a family. And now I realize, since I've been here, that the prayers of my family were also very powerful. They led me to be here. And it's in the right direction. I can't thank God enough for still remembering me and to look out for me and to pass His grace down here. I guess that's all I have. I also want to thank the leaders at 612. There's a Harold here. He comes to talk to us, takes time out of his day to come and share their stories that they have. And any of you that have stories to tell about, to help people, it helps us when you guys come and take your time. We thank you for that. And with that, I'm done. Good job, Peter.
Good morning, everyone. My name is James Miller, a.k.a. Zoom. I was born in Middlebury, Indiana. I was raised Amish to a loving family. So I turned 16, and we do this thing called Rumspringa, where I just went out and did my own thing. And I never thought that I'd use drugs either. And the first time I did cocaine was I was with some people that I looked up to, and they were doing it, and I thought, well, I'll just do it the one time, just this one night, and then I'll quit. And little did I know that was just opening the door for Satan. So I did it that one night, and I never quit until July of this year when I came to Operation 612. Going back, I think the reason that made me do it was it looked appealing, and I read stories about it, celebrities living the fast life. It's what makes them professional, is what I used to think, and that's not how it is. Just like my brother Jason told in his testimony, my dad told me the same thing when I turned 16. He said, "You give Satan your little finger, before you know it, he has your whole hand." And that's basically what happened. June of this year, I was planning on moving away from home down to Atlanta, and my parents didn't want me to. And I have three sisters and one brother that's older than me. And if I didn't listen to my parents, I always listened to my brother. So I come home this one day, and he looks at me, and he had tears in his eyes, and he said, "You know what you're doing." And I was just, I was not going to let anybody change my mind what I was going to do. And he said, "If you move away, this might be the last time we see you." And that really made me think. He said, "If you don't do it for us, do it for your little nephew." I have one little nephew that's the love of my life. So I just held off on that for a little bit. And end of July, came to the point where I knew I needed help. Because I was always thinking, I can quit when I want to. But I realized that I'm never going to quit if I don't go get help. So July 31st, I came out to Operation 612, and I remember my dad told me it's a 7-month program, and before I went out, he was like, "You want to take some winter clothes with you?" And I was like, "No, there's no way that I'm going to stay there for 7 months. I'll do my 2-3 months, and I'll get clean and come back home, but there's no way I'm going to do 7 months." So now I have 2 months left. I don't want to go back home. I want to finish this program. I'd never, when I came out here, I thought, like, the way I think now, I thought that I would never think this way. But God's grace is wonderful. I should have been dead 2 times already. I had a bad automobile accident, and by God's grace, I'm here. So that's all I got.
Good morning. How many Clemson fans we have today? I want to speak specifically to them for a second. There is hope. We got you at 612. If I said I wasn't nervous, I'd be lying. But God likes to take us out of our comfort zone so that we can rely more on Him than we do ourselves. So, my name is Mike Blackwell. I'm 49 years old. I'm from New Philadelphia, which is just down the road. I have a small connection to this church. My niece was married in this church, and that's the only connection, really. But without, I don't know if anybody knows Dakota Schrock and Brittany Schrock. Brittany is my niece. And I know God could have done it another avenue, but without the prayers and the support of 612 from this facility, I don't know where I'd be standing today. And I just want to say thank you to this church and to my niece, who I love dearly, for praying for her uncle. And I was not in a good place at this time last year. I grew up in a great home. I grew up in a loving family. I went to a Christian school when I was a kid. So, the doors were open. I was there a lot of times. So I heard a lot of preaching, a lot of Bible. I sat in pews and seats just like a lot of people here are sitting today, but never truly heard what God was trying to say or do in my life. I went down a path of, I call it a path of destruction, which is what I was on here not too long ago. It's amazing what God can do in a short period of time, but I didn't just wake up one day and find myself using drugs and alcohol and losing my family and a really good job. And, you hear the old country song, you lose all this, you lose all that. But I truly did. I was spiraling downhill at a rapid rate over the last several years. I believe there was a time in my life I did accept Christ as my Lord and Savior, but I never truly surrendered my life to Christ. I just kind of tacked him on to, what I had going on with my life, and just kind of went through life as kind of fat, dumb, and happy. And before you know it, like James said, Satan gets a foot in. And before you know it, six or 7 years have gone by, and I'm sitting at a rehab facility, shaking my head, wondering where in the world did those years go. But I'm thankful today for that path that God took me on. There's a song called Scars. I know you guys have probably heard it. And I wrote it, part of it down just because I'm old and I don't have a good memory. And what God allowed me to do through Operation 612. Operation 612 is not some miraculous organization that we get to go to for 7 months and we're miraculously healed and we walk away and we just live our lives. God is using 612 as a vessel to reach guys like myself. I'm 49 years old and I've got brothers that are 17, 19, 21, 25. And I'm learning as much from these guys as I could ever teach them. And the one thing that, this part of the song was, says, waking up in a new sunrise, looking back from the other side, I can see now with open eyes. Darkest water and deepest pain, I wouldn't trade it for anything, because my brokenness brought me to you, and these wounds are a story you'll use. And that's what I pray every day, that God will use our stories to impact normal people like us. Drugs and alcohol, those are the bad sins that we as Christians talk about. There's other things in our lives as we come in and out of church. It's not just drugs and alcohol that keep us from living a successful Christian walk. It's pride, it's anxieties, it's fears, it's whatever may be in your life. I don't know exactly what you're going through, but I'm not naive enough to think that there isn't somebody in this building today that's just hurting. And I can promise you today that that if you'll let him, Jesus can change whatever you've got going on in your heart, in your life. I've never spent a day in prison like some of my brothers, but I've been imprisoned. I've been imprisoned by drugs and alcohol and just self. I have two daughters, 19 and 21, and I've lived selfishly and for me for quite a few years here now. And like Teddy said, you go down a road that you just think you're hurting yourself. I isolated myself from my family and my friends, my true friends. from church, and that's what Satan wanted me to do. Just get by yourself, you'll be good. You know, in my mind, I'm thinking I'm not hurting anybody but me, but in reality, man, I hurt my family, I hurt my children, didn't lead them as a father like they should have been. Relationships, friendships, it's just the ripple effect is nonstop. But you believe the lie that, you know, you're only in it and doing it to hurt, you know, you're only hurting yourself. But so through all those events, I also had a great family that would continue to pray for me. My mother is here today, and without the prayers of her, I don't know where I'd be today, and I'm thankful for that, as well as a family that also prays. But as far as 612 is concerned, I was scared to death to come to 612. I heard about it through, like I said, I heard about it through Brittany and Dakota, and I think Pastor Phil, recommended 612 through your church. At first, I didn't want to hear anything about it. I'm thinking 7 months of my life, forget that. You know, I've wasted years of my life, and I'm afraid to commit to 7 months to get my life back on track. Scared me to death. In fact, I went out, a friend of mine took me out there a couple months prior to me actually coming. We visited, I sat in the car and just kind of looked around out in Amish country. I'm sitting here looking, thinking it's an occult. You know, it's like I'm out in the middle of nowhere with a house with a bunch of dudes, and I just wasn't ready. And like the gentleman up here earlier said, it doesn't do you any good if you don't want it for yourself. So then, you know, my spiral continued. I was pretty deep into cocaine and started messing around with meth. Had a couple really bad experiences on that drug, but God finally took me to the bottom, and I had no other place to look but up. I thought I hit bottom, but apparently bottom has a basement, and I hit that. So I had no other place to look but up, and I thank God for His love and mercy on my life, and for being the shepherd that He is to come after the one that we talk about, you know, leaving the 99 and coming after the one, because we've all been that guy or girl. So I come to 612 not knowing what to expect. I just thought, I'll get my 7 months in and get the heck out of here. Some of the things I didn't expect when I got to 612 was just the people that support our group, the people like Harold. We have countless volunteers that come in every day, every week, every month, over and over and over, pouring their lives into our guys and me. And that was unexpected. Godly men that give us godly examples that have been through what we've been through and are living a successful, godly life. And those are priceless people in our lives, and we take them for granted, but we're thankful for those guys. We have opportunities to serve through 612. Several of us got to travel this summer, serving at a hurricane relief group, helping down in South Carolina, things like that. We go to Michigan to help out other people. We're pushed to serve others because we've lived our lives for ourselves for so long that we need to put others ahead of ourselves, and that's what 612. That's what some of the things I've learned at 612 is to put others ahead of ourselves. And we just got done with a Christmas Eve we were giving away clothes and food and things to the needy up in Akron here these holidays, and every one of our guys were like, "Man, that was awesome." You know, that's what we're called to do. We're called to serve other people. We're not called to be selfish individuals like I have lived the last years of my life. And 612 has helped me to realize that, you know, it's about other people and it's about Jesus, not me. other things we, just our, something else I wasn't expecting was this brotherhood that I call 612 Brothers down here. I wasn't expecting to come in and love 14 to 19 guys the way I do. If I could go through each one of these guys, I won't, but I could embarrass a couple of them, but I love them with all my heart. And this group of men is, God's got something good for this group of men. You know, Satan's has been trying to get his foot in here and there, but you know, God is faithful because He sees what could be of these guys. There's so much potential in this group of men that it's unbelievable. So there's 1,000 different things that I have go through my head that I can't seem to get from here to here. But man, 612 has been a blessing to me personally. The leadership. The other thing is family. I mean, I got 12, 15, 16 brothers. Each one of them has a family that I feel like is my family now. I got family sitting here with Aaron's parents are here, and I don't want to name names or single anybody out, but I promise you, it's a brotherhood, it's a family, and it's about coming together and doing what is right for Jesus. And I've lived my life so long without that man, it's been good to be. I've been able to come to 612 and just get away from that world and renew my mind, renew my relationship with Jesus, and totally surrender everything that I didn't surrender before. And, you know, it's not a game that we're playing here. These are our addictions, and it's not a game even if you're not in addiction. You know, it's a matter of life and death. What you do with Jesus is your future and our future. So I'm so thankful for God bringing me to 612, and just the way it worked out and the people that are connected to it all is, you know, it's more than I'll go into, but it wasn't anything that I did or Brittany did, or it was a God thing. And I believe He's doing great things with this organization and this group, and He's going to continue blessing it. But I love these guys, and thank you for giving us your time.
Good morning. My name is Luke Tandridge. I'm from Akron, Ohio. I'm 31 years old. And yes, I am the chef at 612. And they also call me Mom. So, well, before I get started, my life was not the greatest. And I really never believed, you know, in Jesus, God, or anything. Okay, here we go. When I was 5 years old, I was dropped off at this new babysitter that my mother worked with, and turned out that was the worst thing that's ever happened to me. They end up tying me up and throwing me in a dog cage and left me there for about, I don't know, I would say about 6 hours. And I remember a group of people coming in, and she said, you know, $50 to do whatever you want to. And it was inhumane, the things that were done. So basically after that, well, actually that was, what I call it is this cloud, this black cloud that would just formed in my head. And that right there was the beginning of my whole addiction. After that, I had no trust in no one. Love was the hardest thing for me to even feel. I couldn't trust my parents, my family, no one. Until I met my cousin Tony. his personality and he just brought so much light into the room. He just brought me up. He got me out of my funk, and just it was a miracle, pretty much. And we went to church, but I was only there to be with my cousin and play, joke around. I never paid attention, and I listened to some of the stories, but it just never connected or anything like that. And getting a little bit older and getting into basketball and sports and school was a little hard for me for me to communicate and talk to people, because yet I trusted no one. And so I met my best friend Nick, and one day his family invited me to go to this family get-together, family party. And so I went, and I ended up in the kitchen, and there's a nice crowd in there, and the neighbors just adopted this 7-8-year-old beautiful little angel. And she wouldn't talk, wouldn't react with no one, because she too was also thrown into a dog cage and had unspeakable things done to her. And I remember looking at her, and all I could do was just turn and walk away. Well, about 2 hours goes by, let alone, before I go further, I've never told anybody what happened to me. And I remember sitting at the bonfire, indulging in really good burgers. And you ever have that feeling where someone's staring at you? Well, I turned, and there she was, just standing there. And I had a mouthful of food, and I was sitting there thinking, oh, she's going to say something. And I remember before I could even say anything, she came right up to me and put her hand right on my knee and said, she goes, everything's okay. He told me what happened. And all I could say was, what do you mean? He told you. What are you talking about? She goes, I know you were also thrown in a dog cage, and he wants me to tell you that everything's okay. I had no idea how she knew or anything, but at that moment I had so much joy, because first time I never felt alone. And we were there. I was there until 2-3 o'clock in the morning, just talking to this little girl, and it was the best time of my life. So I kind of made this oath to myself that I would never have or make anybody feel the way I felt at my experience. And yet at this time I still didn't trust, and all I did was just believe in myself. So I kind of just pushed that away. I just didn't understand it, didn't connect, nothing. So about 17, I had to get my wisdom teeth pulled, and that is when I was introduced to painkillers. And I remember taking the first dosage, and I was like, yep, this is it. This is what I've been looking for, this feeling, this numbness. And within a year later, I'm doing a different type of drug, more like a Xanax and stuff, so I really don't remember those years. And then, when I got, Akron is not a very warming place. It is really evil. Things happen there that you would not expect. I remember when I got my license, I'm 16 years old, and I pulled up to this red light, and a guy walks across the street, And I just happened to look over, and he pulls out a shotgun and shoots a guy not even 3 feet away from him. So all I could do was just hit the gas pedal and take off. Seeing something like that will change you. It will, like, what is going on in this world? My best friend got in a confrontation with this guy at a bar, and he also got shot in the head. And that's my best friend. So that all that was just fuel to the fire for me. I start getting into heavy opiates, and just spending all this money. My uncle had 4-stage lung cancer, and I was asked to help take care of him, and let alone I was taking all of his medicine. And he ended up passing away because I just had no care. I didn't care about other people, my family, nothing. And then the price of these opiates and stuff were getting way too high, and then here comes a demon, which was this guy I knew, asking me about heroin. And I said, no, I won't do that. I can't do that. I'll never do that. Well, 20 minutes later, I gave in. If I would have known how my life was going to be after that, I don't even know how to explain it. I'm 31 years old now. I started using heroin when I was 25. In the 6 years of using, I've overdosed 6 times. Pronounced dead, completely blue, no life at all. My first overdose, I was driving on the expressway, and I remember being behind a school bus full of kids, trying to stay awake and didn't know what was going on. I saw the exit, and the last thing I remember is turning into the lane. And then I wake up in the ambulance, and I had no idea what was going on. Now, I asked them, I was like, whoa, I'm like, why can't I move? And they're like, you're strapped to the table. And I'm like, what happened to the truck? They're like, the truck's fine. I was like, stop lying to me. That's impossible. And they're like, no, the truck's fine. It's in a field. It stopped, you drove it into the field. I was like, there's no way, because I was dead. And plus, there was a gas station in front, and the field was way over to the right. And I couldn't explain it at all. After that, within 3 days, I was using again. And it's crazy how something like that can just have a hold of you and just run your life. With my last overdose, I remember waking up, and it's blurry, and I saw this like woman, and I went to go touch her face, and when my vision came back, it was actually a guy, so I freaked out. I was like, whoa. And he's like, Luke, how are you feeling? Is everything okay? And I'm sitting there trying to pull everything together, and I was like, how do you know my name? And he's like, it's me, John. I went to school with you. And I was like, oh. I was like, well, yeah, I mean, I'm an addict, John. He goes, everybody knows. He's like, Luke, you're not the person who you used to be. You used to be loving and caring and bent over backwards for anybody and anyone. And even him saying that to me, I just blew it off. I was like, I didn't care what he had to say. until I get my cousin, who actually went to the 612, gave me the phone number, and he's like, Luke, it's time for a change. And I was just debating, and then finally something just came over me, and like, everybody knows, so I want to be the person who I used to be. And right before I was going to call, one of my best friends, Cassie, she ended up calling my phone, which I haven't talked to in about 2 to 3 years. And I'm like, hello, Cassie. And she's like, hi, Luke. How are you? And I just told her everything. She's like, why do you think I haven't been around for the last couple of years? She's like, Luke, you need to stop doing what you're doing. People love you. It's like, you don't understand what you do to how you help people. Because I had a good heart, but my brain was just too messed up. And so her saying this all to me, I broke down. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. Had no idea the name of this rehab or nothing. And I talked to Dan, and it says Operation 612 and this and that. And I'm sitting there thinking, oh, this is religion. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to give it a shot. I'm going to do this. And let alone Cassie's phone number, her first 3 numbers are 612. Like I said, I never believed or nothing. And within 2 days of being in the program, I told everybody what happened to me when I never told no one. I didn't know where that came from. This whole connection was off. And then going through, Bible studies and Paul talking to us and everything, my heart started opening up again. And I was like, wow, this is what I've been missing. I'm like, I'm not alone no more. Basically, I was dancing with the demons, and now I'm just singing with the angels. Before I step off, on Christmas we watched this movie. It's called Unbroken, and there was a quote that was in that movie that actually I can't get out of my head, and I think that's for a really good reason. The quote is, a moment of pain is worth a lifetime of glory. And as of now, I stand with Jesus Christ, and I'm ready for the glory. And even all the glory that I'm going to get for the rest of my life, I'm still going to give it back to God. And thank you.
Thanks, guys, for sharing. Appreciate it. So, life is all about choices. We all make choices, good ones, bad ones. I once made a choice when I was 16 years old, and that choice haunted me for 19 years until God conquered it for me. Let's be careful what kind of choices we make. All the guys that are in 612 today is because of a choice that they made. Was it through prayer? Whatever it is, life is still all about choices. And I appreciate that, guys, for making that step.